We're going to start on some basics about ecology. When I was in high school, this was actually the topic that got me really interested in environmental science. We we learned about, well, basically stuff you get now in like seventh grade, but for us it was brand new stuff because I'm that old. And I really I love looking at how ecology and specifically how the interactions between species and so forth kind of work together. All right, so first of all, we distinguish between biotic and abiotic factors. So, biotic factors include, of course, all the living things that are in an ecosystem: animals, plants, fungi, bacteria, and protists. Remember, viruses are not considered to be living. They kind of hit that little midsection between what's alive and what's not alive. And these are the ones that we're looking at specifically. By the way, my little friend, his name's Fernando. Okay, abiotic factors include anything that's not living. So it could be the altitude that something is at, the mineral composition, the different the different elements that are involved, and we've talked about carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus, the water cycle. All of those things are involved in abiotic factors, as well as the climate, the temperature, rainfall, etc. So we looked already at what the difference between climate and weather is, so I'm going to move ahead. All right, biodiversity is a really big topic, and I'm going to have you guys do some research and looking at why biodiversity is such a big deal. Biodiversity is the thing that's going to save us or kill us. There's just no other way around it. We need biodiversity. We need to have more than just the domesticated animals that we're raising. We depend upon what biodiversity brings to us as humans. Believe it or not, the ecosystem services that are there are extremely important to us. All right. Biodiversity is the number of species in an ecosystem. So we have not the populations, but the number of different kinds of species. So species that are rich in biodiversity are more productive, stable, sustainable. We have resistance and resilience as part of that. And of course, we've looked at how it really does come down to the producer. So when you look at why a desert is less biodiverse than a rainforest, the answer is pretty clear that you have to start with the producers. And the more of those that you have, it just moves up the trophic levels. Okay, sustainability is essentially our ability to keep life going repeatedly for generations to come. So it also means that we're able to withstand disturbances. When we look at things like hurricanes, we know that the more biodiversity an area has, the more likely it's going to be able to sustain the challenges that come along with things like massive storms, fires, and the like. And this is a huge challenge for us right now. So we are reaping the whirlwind. And it's unfortunate you didn't do anything to cause this to happen except be born. And our challenge is really, it's an uphill battle right now. So some of the disturbances, you can have invasive species as a biotic disturbance, and then you can have things like hurricanes, tornadoes, and the like, volcanoes as our abiotic disturbances. And then what it does is it makes us more resistant to change and more resilient. So what are our principles when it comes to sustainability? The closer we come to solar energy, the more sustainable we are. That's bottom line. The closer we come to solar energy, the more sustainable we are. So think about it in terms of when you grow something, The plants that you're growing are a direct result of solar energy. We're not necessarily just talking about capturing it in a solar panel. Wind is considered to be a form of solar energy. So and when we grow things closer and closer to solar energy, the more we can come to that, the better off we're going to be. Another one is preserving and protecting and increasing biodiversity. That's how we do it. And then finally, the chemical recycling. So how those cycles work. And as we keep those things in mind, the carbon, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the water cycle, all of those things help us to get toward something that's sustainable. All right. So why is it important? It's important because what biodiversity does is it helps us in the long run. If something collapses, biodiversity helps us to recover from those collapses. All right. A niche is a place that a species has within an ecosystem. So where it gets its energy, how it reproduces, how much sunlight it needs, its space that it requires, the temperature it can tolerate, all of those go about to make its niche or its place in which it fits within the ecosystem. Y'all like my little monocle? I can see close up with it. All right, a habitat, on the other hand, is the place in which it resides or it nests or wherever it lives. Okay, so they're close, but habitat really is about the place in which it is living. All right, metabolism simply means where do you get your energy. So there are different kinds of organisms. The first one is autotrophs, meaning they're going to make their own energy, and they're doing it either through sunlight. They're capturing the radiant energy and converting it into chemical energy, meaning our glucose. Or there's chemoautotrophs, and what chemoautotrophs is they are actually able to take chemicals and put them together for energy. Those usually exist in very inhospitable places, such as we're showing here, a hot pit. What are those called? Anyway, like a lava pit kind of thing. Or at the bottom of the ocean where no sunlight gets. There's also some really exciting news that there may be a possibility for bacteria to exist on Venus as clouds, which would be another place where it would take in sunlight, but it's also a very, very strange place. So that should be interesting. We'll see. Hang on a second. Let me get that out of the way. All right. Oh, well, I may have to redo this. We'll see. All right. So then we move on up to our heterotrophs, and these include our consumers. So we had our producers, and now we have our consumers. We have our herbivores, meaning they only eat plants. We have our carnivores, meaning they only derive their energy from animals up the trophic level, so they're the secondary and tertiary. And then we have our omnivores, and our omnivores are the animals that eat everything, eat anything. And notice humans are omnivores, and we share this in common with bears and raccoons and all primates and seagulls and birds. The reason I'm turning my nose is because one time I saw a seagull carry off a chicken bone, and it kind of horrified me. So anyway, humans are definitely omnivorous, as if you will. So that's how we're getting our energy. Question: can a plant be a carnivore? So what we're looking at here is a Venus flytrap, and what they do is a little fly comes along or an insect, and they snap closed, and then they dissolve those. They have chemicals that are inside of these little cups here, and they can dissolve the fly into various parts. Now, the question goes back to where is it getting its energy? And if you'll notice, the plant is actually green, which tells you that it is actually able to practice photosynthesis. So that tells us, though, that its energy source is still the sun. So what's the deal with that fly? Well, flies are high in nitrogen and phosphorus and other things, and these grow in the rainforest, right? So these things are growing at the bottom of the rainforest floor, which means that their nutrients are depleted. So in order to get nutrients, what they're going to have to do is break down the fly to get it. So there is a difference, okay? There is a difference between the nutrients, which would be your vitamins and your minerals and those kinds of things, and energy. So be really clear about how that works. That means that a plant, though it does it's not really eating the insect. It's not drawing it up through its root system. It's drawing it up through killing the fly. Okay, so another kind, so we talked about our herbivores, our carnivores, and our omnivores. They're also scavengers. So a scavenger is going to live off of dead animals. And some well-known scavengers are things like turkey vultures or buzzards. And there's a whole host of these. An eagle actually is both a carnivore and a scavenger. Sounds like he's a perfect, fit for the U.S. The decomposers, they break down organic material into its various components. So they're different than a scavenger. A scavenger is not a decomposer. A decomposer is mostly the bacteria and the fungi. And then we have our detritivores, and what they're living off of is much like the scavengers, they're eating dead matter. All right, so plants and animals that are on the ground. So what you see here are a number of, you have your, right over here with these mushrooms. Those would be your decomposers, so that's what they're doing, and most of them are the mycelium under the ground. You have your dung beetle here, and so he's a detritivore. These little maggots, they're also detritivores, and then also the worms, earthworms, are detritivores. So they're able to take in the nutrients from dead matter and then move it along. Notice what this says. In nature, nothing goes to waste. So we're the only ones who bury our waste, essentially, and like entomb it. So the real key here is, how do we move toward being able to recycle? And in nature, it's all about recycling, right? So that's the job of those scavengers and detritivores and decomposers, is they start to recycle the material so that it gets to be able to be used all over again. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop actually right there, and we will pick up another video here in a little bit.